So who should Manchester United sign out of Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson and Sander Berge? Well, in terms of the individual ability of the three players, both in terms of current ability and in terms of potential, I think you have to say that Adam Wharton and Elliot Anderson are a level above Sander Berge. And we can see this when we look at this graph, plotting two key central midfield metrics, which is progressive action rate and possessions won, which is basically showing us how good players are at moving the ball forward but also at winning it back. And as you can see, Adam Wharton and Elliot Anderson rank as outliers for both metrics, sitting not just in the top right quadrant above the median for both metrics, but also towards the top far right corner, whereas Sander Berge is positioned in the bottom left quadrant below the median for both. And so we can clearly see the disparity, at least in statistical output, when it comes to ball progression and winning the ball back. But we can also see this when we look at two metrics which I've created by combining existing metrics, which is ball progression efficiency and ball winning efficiency. Ball progression efficiency is just progressive action rate plus progressive actions and then taking the average from that, and ball winning efficiency is possessions won plus interceptions adjusted for possession plus defensive duels won and defensive duel percentage win rate, and then taking an average from those metrics. Now, first of all, when we use this, what we can see is that Sander Berge is really not much of an improvement on either Agate or Mainoo, with all three of them ranking well below the median for both their progressive action rate as well as the volume of progressive actions they actually complete. In comparison, Adam Wharton and Elliot Anderson rank as two of the best central midfielders in the league when it comes to progressing the ball forward. Now, Elliot Anderson has a bit more variety in his ball progression, whereas Adam Wharton is a lot more focused on his progressive passing than he is his carrying. And this brings me on to the stylistic comparison between Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson and also Sander Berge. But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season, with OK Jersey also allowing you to pick up high quality football shirts from just £15, plus free shipping across Europe for all orders over £45. They sent me over these new release alternative Manchester United jerseys from this season, as well as a long sleeved retro home shirt from the 92-93 season, with Cantona 7 on the back, alongside this Nuno Gomez Benfica shirt from the 97-98 season as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout, you'll get a discount, so I'll leave a link in the description and in the comments section below. So when assessing these players stylistically, specifically referring to football manager type of roles, just so it's easier to understand, I'd probably describe Sander Berge as more of a metronome, someone who isn't really going to provide the sort of creativity that you get with a regista, but he is going to be very good at efficiently circulating the ball. And one of the best aspects of his game is his reliability in possession, and you can see this via his pass completion rates, not just for his short or long passes, but also for his progressive passes as well. The issue with his ball progression, however, is that he doesn't have the volume to match, and so if you were bringing him into the central midfield, you'd have to have him paired alongside more creative players. He's highly efficient at what he does, but he's not going to be the star in your central midfield. He's more like the cement in the bricks, someone who keeps the system together, as he does a lot of things very well, such as in the build-up phase, he's very good at those bounce passes, enabling his side to bypass pressure, specialising in efficiently playing a pass through the safe lane, which is basically the highest probability pass that is available, which does come in direct contrast stylistically to players like Wharton and Anderson, who purely in terms of reliability and ball retention are not ranking as highly as Sander Berge for their pass completion rates. But this is because stylistically they're different to Sander Berge. They're not players who play it safe, and so with Anderson and Wharton you're going to see them try those riskier passes, looking to split the opposition's midfield line with incisive passes into players between the lines, which will work the ball in behind the pressure, rather than simply retaining possession with quick circulation of the ball. They're the players that penetrate the midfield line, and that's exactly what United need at the moment. Now, of course, long term, both Adam Wharton and Elliot Anderson need to improve their overall passing accuracy and retention, because when you look at their completion rates for all of their long pass and progressive passes from the Premier League last season, you can see that they rank incredibly low for all of them. And so in terms of becoming a metronome, someone who can control the game, increasing and decreasing the tempo at will, specifically at the elite level of the game, this will have to be the primary part of their skill set, which they will have to improve, particularly Adam Wharton, because he's going to be playing that deeper single pivot role, where he's going to be expected to be the main controller of the game. Now, depending on the price tag of each of these players, as well as United's available budget and the other players they look to sign, you could make an argument that Sander Berge could be the better option for United despite not being the best player. However, he would have to be significantly cheaper, I'm talking like 50%, because considering someone like Ederson is also going to be available for around 30 to 35 million, I just can't see a scenario where it's worth paying more than £30 million for Berge, because he's not going to transform a central midfield into an elite level one. He's more of a kind of Darren Fletcher, Owen Hargreaves type of player who's going to perform a role in an already well-structured central midfield system that's going to elevate that system as a whole. Whereas players like Adam Wharton, Elliot Anderson, and even maybe Lamine Camara and Ederson, alongside Berge as well, are capable of radically transforming a central midfield, not just because they specialise in specific attributes, but also because of how complete their skill sets are. And so while Sander Berge can play the role of a metronome, keeping the tempo high, maybe adjusting it to slow down the tempo to increase control, he is more of a supportive metronome in central midfield and would need a more creative player alongside him. And so I just don't think he's worth that sort of money, considering Fulham paid, 25 to 30 million pounds for Berge only as recently as the summer of 2024. So they're going to be looking to sell him for probably like 40 million pounds, and I just don't think he's worth that. Now, in terms of Anderson and Wharton, I think you could go with either one of them, and I would be happy with either signing. And so in terms of choosing who would be the better option, you need to also look at who else is being brought in, who is being sold, and the overall central midfield structure and the profile of options you have. See, personally, if Casemiro's going, I think you replace him with Kone, Thwaites and Fletcher, banking the salary and the saved transfer fee into the budget, and then I think you have to also sell Mainoo and Ugarte, because Mainoo's only got 2 years left on his contract, and realistically you could sell him for like 50 to maybe 60 million pounds, alongside Ugarte for maybe 30 to 35 million. I mean, that's about 60 million pounds or around that figure in terms of pure profit for PSR. From here, I'd go and get Ederson just because I think with 1 year left on his contract come the summer, he's going to be an absolute steal, probably 30 to 35 million max, probably around the 30 million pound mark, which would not only be a significant upgrade on Ugarte for around the same price that you could sell Ugarte for, but also someone who could be seen as a cheaper alternative to Berge. And really and truly, in terms of current ability, Ederson right now may be as good as Berge is, particularly because of Berge's recent decline in form. Whilst Mainoo is someone that it would be hard to sell, I think given that he's got 2 years left on his contract, and the club have completely stagnated his development over the past 18 months, I don't think there's much choice but to sell him, which was exactly the point that I was making in the summer, that you would have to choose between players like Mainoo who don't fit the system, and Amorim and his system, because if you keep both and it doesn't work out, you're likely to lose both, which will probably end up happening, as even if Amorim is to go, I think you probably have to look to sell Mainoo at this point. But to be fair, I think Elliot Anderson or Adam Wharton as a replacement for Mainoo, taking out the emotional pull of Mainoo being a player that's come through the youth system, I think it is an upgrade. Mainoo certainly has potential, and from the eye test you can see his ability, but I mean statistically, the volume of his progressive passing, his progressive carries, even his defensive capabilities as well, just can't compete with Anderson and Wharton at the moment. And whilst I do feel a bit sorry for Mainoo, because I do think the system is a large part of this, both under Amorim and under Ten Hag, as I think he's far better suited to a more methodical possession approach, rather than playing in a side with a high amount of turnovers and a lot of transitional play. At the end of the day, if you keep making wrong decisions, which United have done repeatedly, in order to get back in the right direction, you're going to have to make big decisions that may be unpopular and a year ago would have been completely unthinkable. But at this point, we're simply keeping Mainoo as a kind of like mascot on the bench because he came through the youth system. He's just another victim of his career stagnating at Manchester United through prioritising one particular system over others. I mean, we've seen it with Rashford, Garnacho, McTominay, Højlund, Alanga, even Ahmad now, and Mainoo's just the next victim of this. And so for me, I think you probably have to sell Mainoo, and so who do you replace Mainoo with? Well, Elliot Anderson and Wharton are very similar in terms of their progressive passing ability. As I talked about at the start of the video, there are some stylistic differences, and the main one being that Anderson's ability to progress the ball is a lot more varied than Wharton. See, Wharton specialises in the build-up phase with those short passes, that fluid body movement, which Anderson does also have. But for me, when I watch Wharton's game, he just seems to have a level of intelligence in possession above most other players. And the best way I could describe it is Adam Wharton is more of a Paul Scholes or a Michael Carrick, whereas Elliot Anderson is more of a Steven Gerrard. And so whilst Adam Wharton is going to be the more optimal of the two, in a more methodical possession approach, with fewer turnovers and a lot more control, Elliot Anderson is someone who can thrive in the transition. Now, I'm not saying that Adam Wharton can't thrive in the transition either, or that Elliot Anderson can't work in a methodical possession approach, but in terms of what suits them optimally, I do think Adam Wharton's ability to create from those deeper positions, as seen with his expected assist rate last season, ranking incredibly highly, I think against deeper defensive blocks, when sides are dropping deep, that is when I do think Adam Wharton would be the superior of the two, because of his ability not just to progress the ball between the lines into the final third, but also then create chances when in the final third as well. Now, Elliot Anderson is still someone who can contribute via chance creation, just not to the same level as Adam Wharton, which you can see statistically when you compare both players in terms of their expected assists as well as their progressive passing and anything really to do with progressing the ball via passes. However, Elliot Anderson does possess better ball carrying ability. Both players are very press resistant in the build-up phase, and their willingness and ability to thread those passes forward between the lines at such a high volume is a specific skill set that makes them stand out when compared to other central midfielders, particularly in their age group. But if you are going to have a high frequency of turnovers, and there is going to be a lot of space in the centre of midfield, I think Elliot Anderson just covers that space slightly quicker, being a bit better at getting to loose balls, but also he is significantly better than Wharton when it comes to taking advantage of that space via dribbles and carries through that space in the centre. And so Elliot Anderson is more of a box-to-box central midfielder who can also play the role of a metronome in deeper areas as well, very similar to Steven Gerrard, whereas Adam Wharton's going to be more of a holding player. He's going to hold a position in the rest defence when he siders the ball, playing the role of a regista where he's not just there to progress the ball forward, but actually create via longer passes in the final third as well. And so alongside a player like Ederson, I'd probably side with Adam Wharton just because I think Ederson and Anderson are very stylistically similar, both in terms of players who are progressive threats, both in terms of their carries and their passes, but also are very good at covering ground quickly, whether this is on the recovery or when making forward runs. And so from a stylistic point of view, I think both Ederson and Anderson would work well in a midfield double pivot with Adam Wharton, with one of Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes either in the midfield three with them, or sitting ahead with Cunha in more of a box midfield. And so overall, out of Elliot Anderson and Adam Wharton, I think the Crystal Palace man would be my number one target, particularly with Ederson likely available for around £30 to £35 million next summer, which, as I said in a video at the start of last summer, would be my ideal midfield double pivot. Now, in terms of Carlos Baleba, I have got a video coming out very soon comparing him to Adam Wharton, analysing how my opinion has changed over the past couple of weeks. So if you do want to see that video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout to get a discount, and I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. And if you do want to sign up to my Patreon, you can get a 7-day free trial. I'll leave that linked on the end screen now as well.